Hello and welcome everyone to my Game Boy Advance SP Dream build. The parts for this build were purchased from Retro Modding and off of Amazon. I will have links to the parts and my tools that I used in this build down below in the description. There's the buttons, and I ordered an extra set for another future repair. New speaker and the screen. The case was purchased off of Amazon separately, but I do believe it was originally a Retro Modding part. The case came with all the hardware necessary to reassemble it, including the metal piece that the back battery cover screws into. Here is the pin that's holding the button in place. There's a little bit of tension on there, so they pop off pretty easily. You see the pin fell out there. Picking it back up. Found it easier to put them all together in my hand and then put it down into place. Once you have it slotted, then you can move the pin back. Same operation as before on the other side. Removing the stock buttons that came with the case, but definitely save those if you're going to do any other builds. Most of the buttons could be placed down with just your fingers. I kind of did it for the video so my fingers were out of the way. The orientation of the contrast button, there's two little bumps on the top and the bottom of it that you can use that align. The bottom two buttons are just round, so they just drop into place. This is the IPS screen from Retro Modding. The ribbon cable and the control cable for the contrast are in the first bag, and then the screen is in the second. This is the old Game Boy that I'm using for mainly just for the board. I've torn everything else out of it, but I am going to keep the parts just in case. The battery was replaced previously in this, because when I received it, it was not working. Removing all the screws from the back of the case, including the one under the battery and the one by the game slot. That I'm pointing out there where the battery cover screws into, but it did come with, the new one came with one, so that was not necessary. Water damage indicator was tripped. Make sure that the power switch is loose. It will not click. The click comes from the rest of the case, the plastic piece on the outside of the case. Here I'm just going through the board and cleaning everything up. I haven't had any issues with it from the water damage, but just to be safe while I have it open. Removing the 3 screws in the back on the board. And you'll most likely have some buttons fall out when you open it like this, because they'll be stuck down. Removing the ribbon cable, you just need to press down on either side of the connector and it will slide right out. Just be careful here, you don't want to rip the cable. Cleaning the button contacts off. I believe that was a water damage indicator also on the top of the ribbon cable, or the ribbon cable connector rather. You want to make sure your button orientation matches when you set it down into the case. And the contacts on the shoulder buttons. I sped this part of the video up. It took me quite a while to modify the screen to correctly fit into the top of the case. Also, you want to make sure that, I would say it's easier to attach the ribbon cable to the screen before you put it in place in the top part of the case in the front, and then after that do this. And you just put the plastic over the front of it and it holds it in place. And it also protects the screen mainly. I cut out some of the video where I struggled with the ribbon cable a bit. Folding over the small connector on the back and figuring out which direction to flip the cable over. But you'll be able to see it with the clear case in the future shots. Cleaning off the back of the screen because you'll be able to see it through the case that I purchased. You'll see me using caps on tape to secure the board before I put the other side of the case down. I ended up taking that back off and used double-sided tape on the back of that board to secure it to the back of the screen. That's the best way to do it. Here I'm using the screwdriver to mark where I thought the board would need to be, or where I thought I would need to cut back for the board. It turned out to be a larger portion needed to be cut out. A lot of this footage I left in, so just to give you an idea of how long it actually took to modify the outside of the case. Is the lip in there, it actually presses on the board, so it needs to be trimmed before the screen can be screwed back together. And if you have a clear case like this, you want to be real careful to not scratch the inside because you'll be able to see it right through the back. Here I tried to wrap it up in a microfiber cloth just to keep the metal away from the plastic. It is a little bit softer plastic than the ones that were originally shipped with the Game Boy Advance SP. Here's me putting that tape on I was talking about. If you use just some double-sided tape, you won't be able to see it from the back. You can see the area that I've cut out. Here I'm removing the hinges from the old case. This one you just want to open it straight and then push the hinges out. It's easiest to do the right hand side first. Just be careful when you're removing that to make sure the ribbon cable doesn't get pinched. And now with the other one exposed, it's easy to pop out from the other side just with your fingers. All the screws that came in the kit worked fine for me. Some people say not to use the new ones and use the original Game Boy ones, but some of mine were stripped as it had been taken apart before. There's a metal piece on the top that the plastic for the ends will slide right onto. And I show you here how to align the hinges after you put the string back in place. Just slide the ribbon cable through. So the hinges are inserted when it's closed, about halfway, and then you open it up and press them in the rest of the way. Here, I'm testing them out. The cable cover goes on the back now, and then there's a single screw that screws that in place. If you set it down on a table, it may fall back beyond where the screw can reach it, so you want to hold it with your hands. Here I'm showing you where the connections need to be made for the contrast control. Bit of an issue with the new soldering iron I had purchased for this. Here I've already tinned the spot that I'm going to be attaching the wire to. Reattaching the ribbon cable is kind of awkward at this point, so if you have something you can lean it up against while you get that cable back in place, that will probably help you here. I was holding it with both hands and then trying to maneuver the screwdriver in there. Here it definitely needs to be leaned up against something. Making sure that the cable is secure in place. Tinning up that pad first. And you definitely want some kind of tweezers or something to hold it. It's very difficult to hold it with your fingers. It's very small wire. Just make sure the wire is in place and out of the way of the buttons. Dropping the buttons and the membranes back in place here. Making sure that they're all pressed down and in position. Once all the buttons are set, I'll put the speaker in place next. And this is the LED indicator. And that kind of hooks down and pushes out towards the outside of the case. Just make sure that that's seated so it doesn't put pressure on the board. Here I'm screwing it back down. When you align these two pieces, you want to make sure that the posts that the shoulder buttons sit on are aligned as you push the case together. And at this point, you want to give it a power test. Make sure everything's working properly. I'm zoomed in so you can see the screen and the contrast change as I press the button. Here's the contrast. And after all the screws are in, just place the correct screw hole covers, and the two at the top are actually bumpers to keep the screen from pressing too hard against the buttons on the inside. So I've added some footage on the end here of me just playing through a few games, just so you can get an idea of what the screen looks like. It is extremely accurate. I love it. And here is the big reveal. The buttons and membranes are all glow in the dark. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.